hosting stuff that you're good at.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Counter Roleplay. My name is Will. Today we have the wonderful Ed Greenwood with us today to chat all things Stormtalons. Do we have an Ed in here, or we just have his voice at least?
We have an Ed. There is an Ed.
We have an Ed. Hello, Ed. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm fine. I'm sitting here in the dark in an incipient thunderstorm, waiting.
I mean, that's atmospheric.
Yeah. That's the ambiance of the interview, I suppose. So we also have with us Brian. How's it going, Brian?
Good. Glad to be here.
Excellent. And of course, we do have a Finbar. Sorry, guys.
Hello. Can't get rid of me. Like a bad penny. Just keep coming back.
Of course, Finbar's cock is with us again today.
Obviously, as always, Cecil stands proud. Painfully erect.
Indeed. Well, today we're going to be chatting to Ed. You guys will have a chance to ask your questions in the kind of latter half of the show. You guys can throw some questions, and we'll do our best to get to them. So don't be too afraid. I'm sure you guys will have a lot of questions. So if we don't get to yours, then we apologize. But you know, we'll do our best, folks. But if you don't know who we are here, in Counter Roleplay, we stream Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop role-playing games 5 days a week. We're here for about 150 hours every single month. We do 24-hour D&D streams every month as well. If you enjoy what you see and you want to catch more, then you can hit the follow button and join us. Today we're on the front page of Twitch, which is really fucking cool. So hi, new people. Hi, Mum. Other than that, though, I guess we should introduce like who people are, in case for some reason people don't know who the Greenwood is himself. So, Ed, how might people know you?
Gamers usually know me as the guy who created the Forgotten Realms 50 years ago. 51 years ago, my goodness.
51 years.
Yeah, and I write books and I design games and I've been in Marvel Comics and DC Comics. I'm a mild-mannered library guy by day, and that's about it.
Nice. Of course, you guys know who Ed Greenwood is, but if for some reason you're sitting there and like, I don't know who this is, then the question is answered.
Hey, the hobby is growing, right? So some people don't necessarily know yet.
Of course, everyone knows who Brian is.
And by everyone, he means no one.
I mean, I'm not really sure who you are, Brian, but
we called into this video chat, and this guy was just waiting there. I'm Brian. I am the designer of Open Legend RPG. So I'm a game designer, and by day I'm also a mild-mannered, except I'm a computer programmer. But anyway, I've been making my first foray into the wonderful world of role-playing game publishing. So our Kickstarter will go live in October, and I'm super excited for that.
Awesome. And Finbar, who are you?
I am a humble streamer and occasionally armchair game dev when it comes to telling other people how their games could be better, but never actually putting those claims to the test. In my defense, I've got time to work that out. Occasionally I show up here to be either the master of the anime role-playing games or a bartender and occasional fanboy. But today I am here to ask questions of
Today I'm just your humble servant.
To ask the questions of people who write cool things. And really, what else could you want with your midnight?
Right.
I don't know what you call it at this point.
Yeah. So we'll be trying to track your questions for it. If you do have a question for a Greenwood, then do @Encounter Roleplay, and I will see them in the chat much more easily because there's a lot of people in chat. It's like 100 people, so apologize if I don't see them. You can combat that with that tactic there. But I guess we should dive into things and figure out what the hell we're doing today. So Ed, you are here for a reason, of course, because you've got new things going on. Exciting new things are happening that you've written, and other people have written as well. So Stormtalons is the kind of main topic for today. I know a lot of you guys probably have questions about Forgotten Realms and stuff, but we're going to try and keep it as Stormtalons focused as possible. So Ed, tell us about Stormtalons. What is it? What's the world? How did this project come to be? Just a kind of opener.
Okay, sure.
I guess.
So I still work on the realms every single day of my life. And I have been busy working on the realms for, yes, over 50 years. And what that means is during that time, I've had a lot of weird stray ideas that have nothing to do with the Forgotten Realms, like science fiction ideas, steampunk ideas, space opera ideas, ideas for how to fix my tricycle. And all of these ideas get jotted down, either electronically or the old-fashioned pencil and paper way, and they get spiked, which means to old newspaper journalists, put on a physical spike, the one you can drive your hand through because it's on the desk, like a nail. and building up and building up. And I have been too busy to do anything with them. Well, in 5th edition, the output of our Forgotten Realms products is drawing down to much less than they used to be. And I am getting older. The days pass, I can't stop them. So I turned to this pile of ideas and said, I'm either going to die with all of these ideas are just going to be thrown away by somebody or tossed into the casket with me or cremated with me or whatever they do, or I could get to them. So I started something called the Ed Greenwood Group. I didn't come up with that immodest title, but my office guys did because they said, hey, we have to trade on your name to get people interested. And the Ed Greenwood Group is a transmedia publishing company, which means basically we're going for every sort of format to get stories to people. Ebooks, music, audio dramas, regular books in hardcover, trade paperback, whatever, everything. And we came up with this idea that Ed could create another setting and another setting and another setting. And because Ed was the sole creator, he would be the bottleneck. This is something that all of us old-time gamers watched Gary Gygax be for Greyhawk, because you can't run a large company that's expanding wildly in all directions and write all the Greyhawk stuff you want. And gamers are waiting and waiting and waiting. This happened to me with the realms too. So the idea was we'd start all these settings. We're up to a projected 30 settings now. And I would form a collective, a sensorium of creative people, musicians, sculptors, actors, dancers, writers, everything, artists, all artisans as well, who could make things, cool jewelry and so on. And we would launch all these settings and we'd all share them and work in them. The first setting that we came up with was called Helmaw. And Helmaw is basically daemons on Earth among us. And it came out and is up to 8 Helmaw books out now. Well, the number 2 setting is Stormtalons, as in the number 2 to be released. It just is about to launch, like now, with my novel Words of Unbinding. And then there's a second novel called Grey Shade,
yes,
by Gregory Wilson. And then there's a third novel called The Pirate King's Daughter by Dilip Rangan. Actually, that's Gregory A. Wilson and Dilip S. Rangan, but okay. And then we have novels coming up. Richard B. Byers, Chris Jackson, Eric Scott DeBee, Rosemary Jones, names that gamers should know, and lots of other people, including some newcomers, as well as some veterans. They're all going to be writing Stormtalons stories. So that means I'm no longer the bottleneck. There'll be a steady stream of stuff coming out in this new fantasy setting. And just to give you the quickie on the new fantasy setting, this is as large as the Forgotten Realms. It is as detailed as the Forgotten Realms. But the main thing is, it is lower magic. It's not the realms, okay? The realms I created to be high magic from the very beginning. There are more gods than you can shake a stick at. In Stormtalons, there are 6. Okay, there are some cults. They are actually the other gods, the 6, just answering worshippers' prayers through another guise. But there are only 6. And in the Forgotten Realms, there are there's more types of magic, systems of magic, people and critters who can throw magic than anybody can keep track of. In Stormtalons, we have a détente between one mighty archwizard, the Hierophar, who has spies all over the world, and the priests of Religor. The priests of Religor, I'm going to put this in modern terms, even though Stormtalons is medieval come Renaissance.
Yeah.
Okay, but in modern terms, the priests of Religor are law and order types. And if you live in Religor, it's like Amish or Mennonite. It's peaceful. Yeah. It's law-abiding. It is a breadbasket of the world. Everybody has a nice life, but everything is controlled.
Right.
Or mavericks, or new ways of doing things, or intense creativity that upsets the status quo. It's no. Know your place. This is it. Everything's right. Da-da-da. Which means, of course, if you're an adventuresome type, you would find Religor dead boring. But the priests of Religor and their masked priests all over the world are the counterweight that stops the Hierophar from being the worst tyrant the world could ever know. He almost is anyway, because if you use magic in the Stormtalon setting, the world of Asmer, if you use magic more than a quiet behind closed doors, I'm going to mend this for you, I'm going to try this for you. And by the way, there's almost no divination or teleportation in Asmer. So again, we don't have wizards bopping all over the place. We don't have wizards spying from hundreds of miles away on people.
Right.
But if you use magic that's too powerful, like if you step out into a street and hurl the equivalent of a fireball or lightning bolt, the nearest hit team, they call them Smite Serpent bands, but they're hit teams, serves the Hierophar, which will be a mix of wizards who serves him, rogues, rogue types, and muscle killers. They show up and they offer you a choice on the spot. You too can work for the Hierophar, or you can die right now at our hands. So as a result, instead of having lots and lots of wizards running around like the realms, you have low magic.
Interesting.
So if you want to tell stories in Stormtalons, it's more like Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. It's more like Conan.
Can I ask a question about that? Sure. while we're on that?
Yeah.
I was curious. So you said you're going to eventually release a campaign setting 5th edition, right? So do you have, I'm curious what your plans are around, like special classes or something like that, since you're saying that it's low magic, so that would preclude a lot of the character classes, right?
Well, at the moment, and this is something that younger gamers don't realize, the Forgotten Realms preceded Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, wow.
And it was I started writing the realms and developing it at least 6-7 years before D&D was first available to a few people.
Wow.
And long before it was available to the masses. And as a result, it's a story world first and foremost. What it isn't, unlike, say, Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth, or Kryn with the original Dragonlance saga, it's not a one-story world. Like the realms, it's the world of 1,000 stories going on. So it is story-driven. And at the moment, we're not proceeding with detailed plans on bringing forth another role-playing game system, because goodness knows there are 50 or 60 of those out there. Most gamers want to use what is their favorite. We will be releasing role-playing game adventures. When I'm writing things for the realms, I am of course writing in D&D 5th edition, because that's the horse you ride.
Right.
Now, for the Ed Greenwood group, or TAG settings, including Stormtalons, we're going to be releasing role-playing adventures written under a system we call QuickBlade. But QuickBlade is more of a format for storytelling than it is a detailed game system. It does more like, just to give you an example of QuickBlade, it would be more like a choose your own adventure.
Right.
this encounter, if the player characters have already met the princess, then this. If the player characters have not yet met the princess, then that.
Nice.
When you get to this encounter, this guy is like a middling level grunt, like da 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 da.
Yep.
And then insert your own game system, because the one thing I do not want to do is give gamers yet another game system.
Right.
Yeah,
They have
sure.
to buy and learn and memorize, because they're only going to hate me for it. They already have and they can use what is their favorite or what they want to do. What we will be doing is, here's another story. Here's tonight's adventure, or here's this week's adventure, and this is how we would tell it. And this also helps novice dungeon masters who are so busy making sure they don't screw up the mechanics of the game that they're having problems handling the plot and unfolding story when the players inevitably do something they weren't supposed to do.
Right.
So that brings me to a question I was thinking of as you were talking about how it's low fantasy. When you're writing, a lot of like narrative ways you can get out of situations that like heroes get into, whether you're writing or if you're playing a D&D game, is like, oh, magic, like immediately you kind of think of there's a magical way to get out of that. How does that present a challenge in the world when you're writing with characters who don't have magic and who have to act as reasonable humans might, or reasonable races?
Oh my goodness, they're going to have to practice diplomacy and use
right.
No. It doesn't mean that there's not magic in the setting.
Yeah.
There's another big thing about Stormtalons. The reason why all of our stories are set now, quotation marks now, the now of when we start telling stories in the setting, is that there are two sorts of dragons in Asmer, the world of Stormtalons. And I don't mean chromatic and metallic. There are brute dragons, the dragons you would fight as monsters or perhaps kill with a terrific battle, cut up and eat, because you've got your dragon recipe book here. Or you might try and tame them to become your steeds, but they are brutes, they are monsters. And they live mainly in the mountains of Nornar. But then there are the legendary, mighty sleeping dragons. And the sleeping dragons are literally buried. And by that, I don't mean they're sitting in some cavern that you can walk down into. They are buried. And they have been asleep for eons. And the legends are they're finally waking up. Well, all magic, so the legends say, comes from either the gods or the dragons.
Nice.
So the dragons, these sleeping dragons, are magical powerhouses, which means if they do wake up, the status quo with the détente between the Hierophar and the priests of Religor is going to get shattered the hard way. And there might be magic everywhere. There is magic everywhere right now in small items, occasional artifacts, lingering spells, and also in the Stormtalons themselves. The Stormtalons are mists. They are ever present. They advance or recede, sometimes swallowing entire countries by themselves. Nobody can control them. They transform people who step into them, and literally physically transform them. They have wild magic in them.
Nice.
So there is magic everywhere, and there are people who try to take a wand or a staff that they found into the mists and hope that they can somehow recharge it by following this ritual that they heard from somebody, or had this crumbling fragment that maybe they've got. I hope they've got the entire ritual. Oh my goodness, how do I shut this thing off? So, I mean, we're going to be having lots of fun and games like that. There is magic in the world. What there isn't are tons and tons of +6 swords, +42 wands of smiting, or whatever.
Let me just throw out there that I'm fully on board. In all the years that I've run D&D, I think I've given out like 5 magic items in the last 20 years or something like that. So you're preaching to the choir in that regard. But sounds good.
You see, one of the things that happens when you have magic not in everybody's hands is cheap and easy, quick way, the Indiana Jones way, with the guy with the scimitar, and he just goes, oh, and shoots him dead. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You don't have lots of magic. You have to think, oh my goodness, I've got this one thing of magic. I better save it till we're at death's door because we may need it, or we don't have any magic. Guess what? I guess we have to be polite to this border guard.
I mean, we can't just kill him and hide the body.
Yeah. You know, and that's better training for getting on an airplane in our real world.
That's why I can't get back to the UK. Look at America.
He's on a mission to socialize gamers.
Should have read Stormtalons.
I'm just kidding around. But yeah.
TSA agents don't appreciate it when you bring up your sneak attack damage.
Yes. Well, I guess now lots of Stormtalons authors want to use a lot of magic. And that's one of the things that behind the scenes we're talking about right now is everybody crafts their pitches, their proposals for stories. And we say, oh, I like that magic. No, that's too much. Right. Well, let's think about this. And we think about it some more because I think it'll be more interesting stories if instead of everybody pulling out their, +3 long iron for, hitting the ball to the end of the course, they actually have to look at each other and say, if you boost me over the wall, maybe I can, that old-fashioned outmoded thing called teamwork. And actually we'll get stories that focus more on the characters trying to do things and not knowing beforehand what they're doing and not having the get out of jail free card walking around at their belt.
Yeah, that makes. Is that one of the? I guess because you say you work on the realms every day. Is that one of the kind of main lessons that you've taken away from writing the realms and then going into Stormtalons, or are there other things about Stormtalons which have been influenced by, I guess, not mistakes. Mistakes is the wrong word. I guess like experiments and experiences with Forgotten Realms.
Oh, certainly. One of the things that I was reacting against, which I've seen over and over again, is from the very beginning of the Forgotten Realms, I wanted to give everybody details of the faiths. If you're a priest, here are your taboos. Here are your do's and don'ts. Here are your daily prayers. If there are any special rituals, here they are. You have to lick cats when you meet them. You face east, whatever it is. And from the very beginning, because there was a sort of code of ethics, code of conduct at TSR, because they were worried about, the backlash, the real world backlash of offending somebody's religion, there was like, oh no, we're not going to publish any of that. Okay, fair enough. So we didn't get any details of the priesthoods and how to run a priest. So it wasn't just a fighter who can't use edged weapons, but can heal them. So, and in the early days of D&D, there were so many people playing clerics who would literally say to the party members, what are you going to give me if I heal you? Like, gold. I want that. And it's like, hey, how is that pious? How is that religious? And it's like, oh, hey, it's my religion. They're the Church of Selfish Me. And it was like, this is not something I wanted to see more of.
Right.
I couldn't publish that stuff. But one of the things I noticed right away with the realms is, oh, give us details of the gods. I need their hit points. Why do you need the hit points of a god? Oh, because players are going to want to kill them. What? It's a deity. It's beyond. Oh, no. They're going to want to fight him and kill him. So I need to know, his hit points, his armor class, what he does. Did he throw lightning bolts in the first round?
Looks like they eventually twisted your arm and convinced you, right? Because I think I read that in second edition, right? the avatars, or am I misremembering that?
Well, avatars was my phrase for lower powered ways in which, but you see, I had something that they just squashed called manifestations.
Oh, wow.
Manifestations are when you call on, say, Lathander, and a rosy glow suffuses the altar. Or if you come up with a good idea and you pray to Lathander and he likes it, suddenly your face or your head is surrounded by a rosy glow, and everybody in the party can say, oh, Lathander approves. Okay, let's do it.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
And they immediately said, oh, we don't want to publish that. That's boring. So they made it into one product in second edition, the original stuff. But then they want avatars. And I said, okay, avatars are ways of having a deity go into a mortal, so they have a smaller powered form. So if you really must beat the crap out of Thor, here's somebody that you can maybe take realistically, because he's not really Thor, he's an avatar, and he'll just watch you wail away on his avatar and go, oh, there's going to be a reckoning. but you see, that was the one thing I learned from working on the realms, is there was this endless arms race of, oh no, I always want to know the hit points of the gods so we can fight them.
Right, yeah.
It's like, I don't want to give you that. I want to give you all the details of how a faith works. And not only how a faith works, the worldly goals. In other words, we are the priests of the wobbly fence post. In this world, we wish to do this. And by the way, as the pontiff of the Church of the Wobbly Fence Post, I would like to corner the market on purple dye, so I can sorts of purple dye, so I can die rich. and of course, to which we always say, "Oh, you wish to die rich, and so you shall. Here's a sack of gold. Oh, thank you. Now put your sword through him. He's holding a sack of gold. He's going to die rich." No. But I mean, the whole point was,
Nice.
I wanted to have secular world goals that the priesthood might not admit to everybody, and they might have secret missions for their priests. By the way, we're the only people who breed cats. So if you find a cat breeder anywhere else,
Right.
It's like I wanted all that stuff in there, and of course that is what I got stonewalled on. So in Stormtalons, no,
Just $20.
now in Stormtalons, rather than have details of all the deities and how to beat them up, it's going to be, this is what the priests do. You might not want to bother the priests,
Right?
because like the car mechanics who make sure that the wheels don't fall off your car or the car next to you and crash and kill you, and like the nurses and doctors that make sure that people with highly infectious diseases aren't walking around amongst us, you might want to let the priests do what the priests do.
Thanks.
Do you think that's maybe how the game and how gamers look upon the game has changed a little bit? Because back in the day, Dungeons and Dragons is a very different game to what it is now. And when we look at games and the end of fiction that we read, we kind of look for different things, I think. Whereas less and less the people that I play with, people kind of around my generation, looking for perhaps a role-playing experience more so than let's go kill the bad guy, or let's go beat up the god, So do you think that kind of has influenced the way you write, or perhaps do you think your writing has perhaps influenced the way we think?
Well, I'm curious, and really, I'm curious. Do you think that has that changed over the year from your perspective, Ed? Because one thing I'll say is that Will has a unique perspective because role play is very friendly to broadcasting and streaming. So I'm just curious what your perspective is there. Just people in general.
So okay, I will be the snotty guy. Oh, I think what I wrote is no. What really happened was from 1978 on, I've had regular play sessions with the same group of players.
Right.
And they demanded full detail, which is why the Realms is so detailed. They wanted to have day jobs for all their characters. They wanted to know what was going on politically. There were many, many play sessions in which no weapons were ever drawn. It was 4 hours of diplomacy and intrigue.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they wanted to do in a play session, which was great because it's what I wanted to do too.
Yep.
The pure enjoyment of the dungeon crawl is always keenest when you are first introduced to the game, and it's like, oh wow, you mean there are like tricks and traps in this, and then you begin to think that they're cheap and they're nasty ways of the dungeon master getting at you, rather than thinking the master is just presenting the world. But I mean, at the very beginning, the going through the dungeon is exciting.
Yeah.
It is, but that palls very quickly if there's no world around the dungeon, if there's no stakes for what you do, if it's just an endless, let's survive. Oh my gosh, we're in the room with the one-armed statue again. Does anybody remember how we got out? I mean, we all have maps, but they're useless because there are 15 rotating rooms between us and the, all this stuff. And it was like, that's not what I wanted to do
Right.
as a gamer. I wanted to play things where your characters grew up and they got married and they had offspring and they changed the world in small ways and large ways. They don't all get to be rulers.
It's so interesting, isn't it? How it's like, finding that group of people where you can pursue that together. It's challenging because of different perspectives. I mean, all of my most fulfilling games are like that. But then you get different people come to the group and it starts to skew or turn left or right. You know what I mean? So, but have you had mostly the same people over all that time? Wow,
mostly the same people. And the other thing is, people will come in and say, I had a really shitty day today. Can we kill something? And they'll say that out of character at the beginning of the play session. And so, and I look around and say, everybody else feel that way? Yeah, we want to cut loose or whatever. Okay. So you accommodate, because as the dungeon master, you are there to entertain your players. They are giving 3 or 4 hours of their lives up that they'll never get back. Your job is to make that 3 or 4 hours so worth it they want to come back next week.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean you pander to them, because if you make things too easy, that in itself means, there was no achievement there. So I don't value it. But if they come back thinking, oh, that was so cool, and we finally figured out the secret of why the princess's middle name makes all the courtiers grimace and turn away. We finally figured that out after 4 years. Wow. I'm a slayer of the undead.
Yeah.
And then they go back to, sweeping up at their workplace.
Yeah.
But they feel good because, hey, I may be only second broom on this floor, but I'm a slayer of the undead.
That's right.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, a question that we had, which kind of runs on from that, is, you've been playing since the very first edition of Dungeons and Dragons came out, and writing before that even came out. So from then to now, because I play D&D every day. It's all I think about, and all I invades my dreams as well.
It's just always there. Saving throws, dice checks.
So I was wondering what the most kind of exciting things to happen to the game have been over that time, and if there's anything that you kind of miss about from before, or
You mean in my personal campaign, or to the field as a whole? Or?
I guess the field as a whole, yeah.
Like from
I would say that the field as a whole, the nice thing is the explosion and proliferation of different game systems and different people in the hobby has meant that any perception or drive for there to be one true way to game has gone by the wayside. I think that because Dungeons and Dragons initially attracted a lot of war gamers, overweight guys with facial hair who had tape measures and miniatures and played on sand tables or played case law strategy games, meant that there weren't enough gals in the game, women in the game from the beginning. They weren't treated as equals and they weren't equally represented. In my home campaign, that wasn't true. And I always found that made the level of play so much better, because if you start at sort of junior high school, the gals do not want to appear stupid in front of the guys, and the guys do not want to be embarrassed in front of the gals. So they all bring their A game. They are more interested, they're more focused, they're more energetic, and therefore, if you have role players who want to act, and my home campaign, they had ham actors. Everybody wanted to put on, and I watch gamers do this at Gen Con, and it's 15 minutes of funny Monty Python voices. They got beyond that early on, and they were speaking in character. We would always have our councils of war before we went down into the dungeon, speaking in character. And the artificial rules were don't split up the party. And whatever comes out of your mouth comes out of your character's mouth. Unless you say player to player, pass me the chips, or player to DM. I've lived here all my life. Have I ever seen this guy before? But unless you said player to player or player to DM, if you said something like, okay, you run around behind the orc and hamstring him while I distract him with this nice bag of shiny gold, and you do that right in front of the orc will hear you and react accordingly. So I mean, it was always role playing, and that, I think, over the years, the mere fact that we have people from different backgrounds and different cultures, and the genders more and more equally represented, plus the fact that the original gamers grew up. And I don't mean got more mature, I mean they grew up, so that I saw at early Gen Cons would bring their sons and daughters to me.
Yeah.
Now they're bringing their grandchildren up to me, and I'm doing autographing sessions at Gen Cons. And as a result, you have 3 or 4 generations playing D&D together, which means that they want different things out of a game. So the game is broadening in its character.
That's cool.
There are still people playing it like a football game where they all go into a huddle.
Yeah.
I now speak of American football, where they stop the play and they all huddle and say, okay, and before each play. But there are other people who want to act in character, including putting on the voices, sometimes putting on the costumes, and being their character all evening long. There's some people who go to fight, and there's some people who go just for the intrigue. And I have run one-on-one, one Dungeon Master, one player sessions, where the one player wanted to research spells, practice the spells, perfect the spells, go out and get the material components they needed on the sly, hire adventurers to go and have adventures, and in return do magic for them in payment, in order to build up their power, and at the same time try and stay under the radar of the local ruler, who would surely want to co-opt this wizard or sorcerer or sorceress or wizardess, if the ruler knew that they were becoming powerful and that they lived within the shadow of the castle in the city. So you can have so many different things going on in a play session, and I think that is far more healthy. What you mentioned earlier, Monty Cook and Monty Cook Games, Invisible Sun, a new approach to role playing. These are the sort of things that light my fire too, because I want to see new things. I want to see different things. That doesn't throw away the old things. It just means we expand the horizons.
Yep.
So that when we were kids and we went to eat at a buffet and there was one restaurant in town, it was really cool to go to the buffet. And if the buffet made something mom and dad didn't make, like, I don't know, shrimp or Chinese food or something, it was great to go and get that you couldn't get at home. But after you've been to the buffet 40 times and you knew that the figs are always going to be here, the bean salad's always going to be there, and oh darn, I got here too late and somebody ate all the kumquats or whatever. And it's just, the thrill goes down. But if every time you walked into the buffet, they'd added a table with new stuff on it, you'd say, what's that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's roast intestines of insurance salesmen. Oh, there's something new every time you walk into the buffet, and I think that's what role playing has done over these years.
It's cool to think about how sort of like one generation's ceiling becomes another one's floor. That's something that had never been considered that before. The idea that it's progressing generation to generation. You have people who I actually know. I have an aunt and uncle whose kids have played D&D from the youngest possible age, and that's a really cool thought. Just it's not something that you hear talked about very often, but it's interesting to think that there's an evolution because of it. A progressive stepping that happens there. I thought that was it's fascinating. Something I shall ponder after.
Well, yes, the younger generations who communicate more through social media, but they're more visual.
Right.
Therefore, more of them have seen the same Marvel Universe movie that just came out, or so they can cross-pollinate and share things. They can have in-jokes that don't have to be explained, so that is changing. And the other thing is, I'm not saying we have to throw away the old stuff. There is occasionally each person who goes off to university and is alone for the first time eats ramen noodles or mac and cheese. And there's nothing wrong with mac and cheese or ramen noodles. Even if I had mac and cheese for the first time 56 years ago, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with mac and cheese, but it's really nice that I can get mangoes. And when I was a little kid, what's a mango?
Yeah, right.
Here, kid, eat your corn on the cob.
Yeah.
If you don't like that, we got tomatoes. If you don't like that, we got potatoes. And there's this green stuff over here, this rabbit food. Don't eat the mushrooms. You never know what they are. And that was the way it was when I was a kid. So if you expand things, and it just means there's more to pick from, then the games are going to be more varied. They're going to be richer. And if somebody comes in and says, this is really a sausage fest, guys. You guys are having lots of fun, but somebody flying back and forth make me uncomfortable.
Sure.
And they go, oh, never thought of that. Okay. Well, if you change things, whether it works or it doesn't, you've immediately broadened the way you role play. Because you've been shaken out of your rut. And in the old days, you could sure tell the people who went to Gen Con and other conventions from the people who didn't, because the people who didn't had settled into how their group wanted to play D&D. And they never saw any other style.
Right.
And they would go to Gen Con and you'd see them sitting there with their mouths open and not saying a word because what's he doing? Oh my gosh, you mean they're going to make a constitution check because I spent the night in the open? But I camp every night of my life. Well, it's in the rules. What do you mean it's in the rules? Or what do you mean they're using weapon speed factors? That's a page in the player's handbook I just flip over to get to the spells. So the mere fact that you are seeing the way other people play, and definitely going to early Gen Cons and watching the War College, all these American military profs, they would sit down to play D&D and they would play it like a military exercise. And there'd be a chain of command. And they'd send out scouts. And the scouts would have to report back to make sure that our intel was correct. And the little kids who were playing next to them, who were wailing away at wyverns and basilisks, would be looking over at these fat old guys sitting there and going, what is with these guys? When are they going to start having fun?
Right.
But of course, to the older guys, they were having fun.
Yeah.
They could actually send out scouts and get intel back for the first time in their lives. It didn't happen that way in real life. What's with all these kids jumping around and screaming, hey, keep it down over there? So the mere fact that they were within earshot of each other in a large room at a large convention, they would hear how people did things at other tables. And sometimes they overhear it. And sometimes they beg, borrow, and steal the cool things. What do you mean? Oh, you had a monster on the underneath of the bridge. Oh, it's Billy Goat's Gruff. Oh, cool. I can use that. So the next time my nose in the air paladin at my local does that, ha ha ha.
Nice. Well, I know me and Finbar were chatting to Mr. John Harper a couple of weeks ago, and we asked him about conventions because we're interested in how important conventions are to the hobby, and not just to role-playing games, but to fiction and pretty much everything to do with the kind of hobby. Finbar, did you have a question kind of regarding that? Because I know you were particularly interested about it last time.
Just the very idea to me is I am very new to the hobby. I think of everyone on Encounter Roleplay, at least within the team.
Finbar is actually 12 years old.
It is also, it's very true. But no, I only...
Well-known fact.
I picked up my Pathfinder core rulebook in my second year of university, so that was only about 3 years ago. 4 years ago? I don't even know how old I am. But yeah, so it's been very new for me. So like convention games and such are a bit of a novel idea, but I'm curious. I'm assuming have been to many a Gen Con. And
oh yes.
Like the convention game, the kind of the public gaming, the like going to your local store and playing a game there. Like I just kind of wanted to get some experiences, some good stories from the year, how one shows up to something like this and runs something cool that people will enjoy. Yeah, no, I asked the easy questions.
Well, my first Gen Con was Gen Con 8, and it could be held in a small school gymnasium. It was held in the Horticultural Hall, and that was a small room with a bunch of guys with sand tables and so on, standing around talking. Gen Con these days attracts tens of thousands of people, takes over the entire downtown of Indianapolis, is straining the housing stock, and in fact is located in Indy because in the continental US of A, they have two choices. It's Las Vegas or Indianapolis to get enough hotel rooms, which is why it moved from Milwaukee. And I hesitate to, I don't want to ballyhoo conventions too much because I think that makes people feel left out who don't have the time or money or the geographical winning the lottery of being easily able to attend a convention. I have been known to drop $5,000 to attend a Gen Con, you know, for food and the driving down and driving back, buying all the games I want to buy.
Well, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And the worst thing in the world I would want to do is sit here and go, oh, you should all turn up to Gen Con every year. And everybody go, I can't afford it. I really but I do think that if you have a chance to go to a convention, and some conventions, I mean, the science fiction and fantasy field has had conventions for years too, all the genre things.
Yeah.
And they vary from what they used to call relaxicons, which were an excuse to get together and chat and drink. Eat.
We have one of those locally. We have a relaxicon, that's what it's called. They've been running it for whatever, 40 years or 30 years or something like that.
Yeah. And they vary from that to giant game fairs, San Diego Comic-Con, which is no longer really about the comics. It's mainly about the movies and the TV shows and the cosplay and all that. But I mean, it's too big in my personal opinion, because one person can't easily enjoy the entire convention. They don't have time to go to those three giant buildings. Gen Con is getting unwieldy too, and it can be daunting and overwhelming.
Yeah, that's true.
But on the other hand, it's also really affirming, because instead of saying, I am the only weirdo in my half-horse town, I'm the only idiot who plays Dungeons and Dragons, you can say, this is my tribe. Look at these tens of thousands of people. I am not alone. And you go to Gen Con and you see, say, Card Hala, which is where they make these giant structures, these skyscrapers of magic cards and other collectible game cards. And it fills a corridor. Or you would go into a ballroom, a literal ballroom at one of these convention centers, and they'd be playing Starfleet battles on the floor on one of these icky hotel carpets, you know, that are made in some weird icky hotel carpet factory with repeating patterns. And instead of playing Starfleet battles at home on your kitchen table, where you can see exactly where the opposing ships are, because they're at most 5 feet away from you, they were playing Starfleet battles with the other ships hundreds of feet away. So you know they're there. You know vaguely what direction they're in, but you can't target it. It completely changes the game.
Yeah.
And you can also see things like we used to have Gen Con has always had what was colloquially and politically incorrectly known as door Nazis, which were the people who made sure you had a badge before you went into the exhibit hall. And when Star Wars became a big thing, for some years, the door Nazis were Imperial stormtroopers in full armor. And when you see one person dressed in Imperial stormtrooper armor, you go, oh, that's cool. But at Gen Con, you can see 50 of them marching in cadence, with Darth Vader at their head playing the stormtroopers march.
I think that's
really impressive.
That's awesome. I think you make a good point also about the whole point about, it really depends where you are, right? Like some people are just super, you know, content and happy with where they are with, you know, their gaming group and their life in gaming. But then I really like that idea that, you know, if you are somebody from a half-horse town, you know, as you said, where, you know, maybe if it's a small enough town, maybe finding people you get along with really well to play is a challenge, you know, that sort of thing. So the idea of going to Gen Con for people like that, that's really cool. I'm a hermit. Like I'm afraid of the number of people at Gen Con, but for someone who needs to like be affirmed that, yeah, there are other people like me out there, I think that's great advice.
And there's another thing about Gen Con. I have my Gen Con friends that I only see once a year, because they live halfway around the world, but they're gamers.
Yep.
And I'll see them at Gen Con. Some of them are close friends I'm going to have dinner with or lunch with or a drink with, if possible. And we'll end up sitting in somebody's hotel room at 2 a.m, excitedly discussing something from a game. in whispered tones so we don't wake up the people around us. And there are other people at Gen Con, I don't know their names, but I see them every year, and I smile and wave at them in the rush in the corridors, and they smile and wave back. I know who I am, I know who they are, but I don't necessarily know their name, but they are fellow gamers, and I've seen them for year after year, and hey, they're still alive, and they showed up. Cool. You know, and the other thing is, I think large conventions do this better than small conventions. And I've seen this at Gen Con. Gen Con has the Circle Center Mall, a shopping mall, a multi-story shopping mall, sort of attached via various flying bridges and stuff through a parking garage to the convention center. And it has a food court at one end. And like all places of this sort of modern ilk that have food courts, they have a little corridor that runs unobtrusively off to the washrooms that separates the food court from the row of stores. And I was coming through the food court to get to the Executive Inn and Suites through the Art Garden glass pyramid some years ago. And the last store on one side was the Disney store. And there was a large family coming out of it. Father, looking weary and exasperated. Mother, trying to hold the hands of 6 or 7 excited kids who are all young and of different ages. Black American family, the kids are excited and bouncy because they've been in to see Disney. The parents are pissed off because they can't afford to buy everything that the kids ask for in the store, you know, and it's like, okay, I've had it now. And at that moment, 2 attendees of Gen Con, guys dressed as Warriors of Gondor, perfectly dressed as Warriors of Gondor. They may even have been extras from the Peter Jackson movies wearing their costumes, for all I know, came down the corridor from the washrooms out into the shopping mall. And the littlest kid stopped dead and said, "Daddy, they're real."
Nice.
That might be the most adorable thing I've heard.
So,
but it's inspirational. Because
Yeah.
you think to yourself, if that kid has another positive experience at the con, or just from, even if they're not attending the con, you know, people going past, what was that? That was, what's this Gen Con? Okay, when I grow up, I'm going to go to Gen Con.
Right, yeah. That's awesome.
So you've got somebody else in the hobby.
Yeah.
So there's that lovely good thing too.
Well, yeah, actually talking about getting into the hobby, this is a question that when I told people that you're going to come on the show, everyone wanted us to ask. I'm sure it's the kind of question you probably get a lot, but you know, someone is wanting to write, and you know, we've got Stormtalons is about creating a creative collective of different authors, over 150 books. So if we were going to throw ourselves into creative settings, character stories, and the like, I mean, Brian himself is writing his game. What would be your advice? What kind of wisdom pearls?
Oh dear. Well,
that's a very expansive question, but you don't have to answer it all in detail.
just to give the hype, can I just hype you up for just a moment of like how useful this experience might be? Because I was browsing through your website before we did this interview, and the Onda Librum website in general, and I found so you've all the many universes you've created have roughly sold 250 million books in 40 different languages across 120 countries. If there's a person whose fiction and ideas have touched kind of the entire world over, this is the man. Pay attention, children. Wisdom is coming.
Gosh. I still wear underwear.
We wouldn't know otherwise.
Yeah, there you go. But no, the thing is, I've been doing this for so long, and things have changed so much that on the one hand, I can't give you the one true way to get published because there isn't one, and everybody does things their own way. I would say the root thing to remember is the thing that makes humans different from everything else that's alive on the planet isn't tool making. There are plenty of critters that make tools. What makes us different is we tell stories. We tell stories and we try and understand the world and each other in light of the stories we tell. We use them to lay down moral lessons. We lay them we tell stories to warn people. We tell stories to make people feel included, to make us feel better, and just to entertain each other. And a strong story in which you entertain the reader, viewer, listener, gamer is the key. It doesn't have to be a brand new story, because goodness knows, we've been telling classic stories over and over again since, well, we know for sure since the Babylonians, because that's the oldest writing that we have reliably tells epic tales. But certainly if you ever read an English translation of Juvenal's satires, and you think, oh, this is a gossip column. I don't know any of these people, but if I lived in Rome long enough, I would.
Yeah.
Because they're all real to me by listening to this catty gossip from Juvenal. So I mean, things don't change that way. But the number one thing is to hone your stories. Now, how to break in various fields, that's really difficult for me to answer because it has changed so much. And it used to be who you knew. And in some ways, it is more, again, who you know. In the case of TEG, the thing I'm doing now, we don't care where you come from. We don't care whether you've published nothing, or if you've published haiku, or if you've just written haiku on the back of the person sitting in front of you in the grade 3 class, or whether you're an accomplished professional author. We don't care where you come from. We want to read your pitch, if the pitch fits the lore for the setting, and then if your prose grabs us, we want you. If it doesn't measure up to snuff, we're going to say no. Rewrite it. And we are trying to develop mentoring programs so that somebody can read through your stuff and say, okay, this is good, except because of this and because of that. But the main thing, to learn how to write and write well and make a living at it is like anything else. You have to do it often enough. I mean, how did we all learn to read in the first place? How did our brains learn to take these curved squiggles of ink on paper or chalk on a chalkboard and translate them into words that have a meaning, that we can actually discuss something that was written on the board in front of us instead of going, I don't know, they're shaped squiggles of ink. Or how did you learn to ride a bicycle? It's practice. You do it over and over again. And you learn what works and what doesn't. Don't put your fingers in the spokes while the wheels are moving. You learn these things one way or the other. And it's something you learn how to tell a story, and you learn what works right. And you learn what to leave out. Most novice writers, they overwrite. And then she took the purple panties out of the drawer instead of the green ones, and then she put her left leg through the hole, and then she put her right leg through and then she went into the bathroom, and then she pulled the blue toothbrush, not the pink toothbrush.
Have you been reading my work, Ed?
Guess what? You have to change it to a rock video. And I don't mean a rock video that shows you the singer's, the guitarist Elvis, over and over again while they chant the same lyrics. I mean a rock video that tries to tell you a story in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
How much of the story can they leave out and leave in the scenes that make sense, particularly if they're singing inane lyrics over them, so the story has to tell itself without any dialogue in the background, just from what you see. Okay, cut it down to that. Okay, and you cut it down to that, and it's like man eats dog, the end. Okay, that's cut down too far.
Too much, yeah.
Okay,
That's
middle.
That's such a great point. Oh man, that's such great advice. When I had written my stuff and I brought in my co-writer who's an English professor, the best thing that happened was removing all of the excess stuff, and really boiling it down to only the most like poignant words. You know what I mean? And that's I think great advice. Totally.
How much can you shoehorn into the story without slowing the story down at all and making it obvious that you're shoehorning, that tells you more about the characters?
Mm-hmm.
So there are two people trapped in an elevator. Geez, when's this thing going to start again? You can tell a lot about the characters by the way they say it, and therefore the way you tell us. He said testily, hitting the button for the 43rd time. If you hit the button for a 44th time, it's going to fall off, she said. looking pissed off. Okay, now you've told us more about those two characters than merely narrated to us what they did. And if you can manage to squeeze that in without loading the story with backstory, we don't need to know that this one's a diabetic and this one is afraid of heights and this one likes the color of green and that's why she's wearing green shoes. We don't need any of that crap. We only need it if it's a murder mystery and the green shoes will make a difference later. And then we have to put other stuff in so it isn't bloody obvious to the reader when you're talking about everything, and all of a sudden you stop and he's telling us about green shoes. Remember that. That'll be important later because he hasn't told us anything else.
Chekhov's shoes.
But unless you're doing that, you don't need to put in the stuff.
Yeah.
So don't fall in love with your own characters. Don't put in too much stuff. Tell the story first. Tell the bare bones of the story. If you can tell the bare bones of the story, then the story makes sense and you've got a plot. And you're not doing what other beginning writers do, where they write. And then he looked out the window. There was a bird. It was a brown bird, different from the black bird he'd seen when he looked out the window earlier. And I've written another page. It's like, no, where's the plot?
Yeah.
If you cut the story down to the bare bones, then you've got the bare bones of the story. You know where it's going. Okay, now you can add stuff. Like the race and chase scene where they slide down the banister and somebody's put a knife at the end of the banister.
Nice. You've got 100 people writing short stories in chat now, by the way. Also,
mind those banisters, folks.
Yeah, you're working on it. Also, thank you to Squiggy. He donates £5 and he said, "This is the greatest stream I have ever watched. Please roll for Ed on the birthday table." We allow people in our game.
Please roll for Ed.
we allow viewers in our games to make characters roll on like magic item tables and affect the games. Thank you very much.
I sing, I dance on tables, and you may want to pay to make me stop. No.
Oh man. Well, I know everyone in chat has been waiting patiently to ask their questions to it, so I feel like it's only fair to pump through a few of these. Don't feel like you have to spend too long on each of these because I know there's plenty of them.
There's a few.
Yeah, there's plenty more to come after.
I will try and be concise.
Sure. So one of the most self-serving questions I've ever seen, and whoever put this in chat, you are an excellent supporter of the channel. He says, "Ed, can you play a game of D&D with Will?"
I would love to.
All right.
Yeah, let's schedule it when I have some free time in 12 years.
Yeah, me too.
But sure, I would love to play D&D. It's a matter of sleeping, eating, doing all the stuff I have to do, and cramming in D&D sessions. But
that's
hey,
it. That's how you do it. So a more serious question: did Ed get any inspiration from Andrzej Sapkowski, the Witcher book saga, for this low magic setting? And a lot of Witcher fans around.
I feel a good addendum onto that is kind of what other fictions have you drawn some inspiration for to build out the world of Stormtalons?
Okay, well, remember I'm older than dirt, okay?
Fair.
I grew up reading all the books in my dad's den, okay? And my father, like most book collectors, built bookshelves, cram books in. So the bookshelves were not in order of series order, they were in order by physical size. Yep. So he could cram the maximum books into that room by building shelves of just the right height, which meant that Lord of the Rings first editions in hardcover were cheek by jowl with The High White Forest, a novel of the Battle of the Bulge by Ralph Allen, which, by the way, has a hilarious scene in it in which undercover German agents who are going to be sent behind the American lines are trying to learn how to say the F word, but sound like Americans in the classroom, and they're failing miserably. But anyway, it was great fun to read when I was like 6 years old. But they put in a book. So I read everything in the book, including what passed for porn in the 1930s. She was staked out nude and to die. And I would run upstairs with these books and wave them under my dad's nose and say, "This book was great. Where's the next one?" And my father would say, "If you want the next one, son, you're going to have to write it yourself because that writer's been dead for 50 years. "Oh, okay." And I'd run downstairs and write some absolutely terrible tripe in the style of whatever the writer was. So the main influences on me from early on were Rudyard Kipling, P.G. Wodehouse, and everybody from Harold Lamb to Lord Dunsany to that was in my father's study. And then Tolkien hit, and by Tolkien hitting, I mean he he became big in American college campuses, so there was suddenly excitement and everybody was trying to imitate him. And at the same time, I was starting to get interested in Fritz Lieber's Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories, which were in a fantastic magazine, serialized, and I realized, hey, these are all set in the same world. Well, I started doing the same thing for the Realms. Each story was a self-contained story about Mert, the fat moneylender, who was a combination of Falstaff from Shakespeare, Nicholas van Ryn from Poul Anderson's Pulsotechnically, and a drunken engineer Glencannon from Guy Gilpatrick's Glencannon Sea Stories. So I sort of put them together into a fat, food-stained, floppy-booted merchant, and I was writing short stories. But then along came Roger Zelazny, writing the Amber books, and I fell in love with this sort of the Borgias family saga, the soap opera of who did it and who was double-crossing whom. And at the same time, Lynn Carter started republishing all the classic fantasies in paperback with Ballantine, and my father liked to buy them and read them, and he also liked Edgar Rice Burroughs and all the early Conan stuff. So I would read stuff the moment my father dropped it and left it lying around. So I read everything. So no, the Witcher books, no, because I had barely heard of them until, you see, the other thing, I work in public libraries and always have done since I was 14 years old, and I'm now 57. So I have read a lot of books, and whenever anybody mentioned anything, I could at least go and look it up. Even if I didn't want to read it, I could have a look at it to see what it was. Because that's the job of a good library person is he comes in and says, oh, I've read the last Barbara Cartland and I hear she died. What else do you have that's like this? You have to be able to steer them to something. So you have to stick your nose into all sorts of things that otherwise you probably wouldn't read for yourself. But you know what. So I've tried everything, but my influence is everything. Because you learn what you like in terms of storytelling, right? What stories you liked and what you hate. Donald Westlake wrote all these Dortmunder short stories and novels. And although a lot of them would not appeal to a non-American, I find them hilarious because the people in them talk the way real Americans talk to each other, rather than the way writers write people. And it's hilarious. Sometimes just watching him order a drink in a bar, you'll read the thing and go, oh, wow, I got to reread that because that's so real. I can see it just because of the way he's writing. And then there are other times when somebody's trying to be highfalutin. Come ye to the domains of Raunon the Terrible, seeking succor or savagery? And you go, yeah, I can write that stuff too. The question is, should I? Anyway, so yeah, no, not the Witcher books, but lots and lots of stuff have been my influences from the beginning. And I still read every day. I read 2 or 3 books a day. So yeah, the influences are endless, but it's everything, every genre.
Wow, awesome.
I like
okay.
mysteries there, you know.
Yeah. All right, so a quick fire one. Who's your favorite Realms character to write about that you did not create? Or in fact, favorite Stormtalons as well, to follow on from that, because there's a lot of interesting characters.
I don't have a favorite Stormtalons character yet. I had one, but I killed her off. There's one that's most intriguing, that's Tavern. And Tavern is his nickname because he's always found in taverns. And the reason why he's so intriguing, because we've revealed so little about him so far. I know a little more than has actually appeared on the page, but it's interesting because I haven't plumbed the depths yet. In terms of the realms, that's a very hard one. I would say the ones that I enjoy most that I didn't create are things like Erlen that Elaine Cunningham created and so on. The vast majority of characters I write about in my books, I created. You know, people may not realize, you know, that I created the serpent, Elith Krolnober, because other writers use that character a lot. But most of the characters I put in my books are ones I've created, because that way I don't have to slow down and worry about what I'm doing to somebody else's character or ask their permission or maybe screw up something they were intending to do in their next book by what I say about the character in this one. Besides, it's another chance for me to bring more of the cast of multi-thousands within the pages of my book. So I honestly don't have favorites. And that is the old, you ask the mother, which is your favorite child?
Yeah.
Or you ask the He-Man, which is your favorite testicle?
Oh man,
There's a sentence I didn't expect to hear today.
yeah.
There you go. There's your takeaway quote.
Yeah.
Twitter. Put it on the book.
Well, I've been chatting.
All right. So we got a question of how did you find the recent 5th edition Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide? Was there anything you'd add or remove from that if you were, I don't know?
How did I find it? I went to the local hobby store where I'd special ordered it, and okay. What the approach in 5th edition is to make the game accessible to newcomers. So therefore you grow the game more easily. So the way the rules are written are far more accessible to a non-gamer.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that you can find everything easily and quickly. And for gamers, it's a real wrench because we've been using some of the same words like level, for instance, to mean different things for 5 editions now, 6 if you count 3.5, 7 if you count Pathfinder. So, I mean, we're using some of the same vocabulary to mean different things. And then in 1st edition, I can still remember the difficulty I had explaining to a nice little old lady at the church that character level was different from spell level, was different from a level in a dungeon, which was different from a class level that had a name, Myrmidon or whatever. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, we could have. No, this is really in. This is really, it's like the jargon of the tribe. Course, 5th edition simplifies. So the difference between me if I was running the Forgotten Realms and owned Wizards of the Coast, as opposed to the Sword Coast Adventurer Guide, the Sword Coast Adventurer Guide would be your introduction.
Right.
And 20 more hardcover books, same size, which would say, for more, see Volume 6. For more on banners and heraldry, see Volume 7. For more on what the knight is wearing below the waist, see Volume 8. If you actually break into the princess's trousseau and you're raking through her treasure, see Volume 9. But the problem is, again, I would be the bottleneck because I'd be wanting to write all those.
Yeah.
I'd be waiting for them to come out. So the thing about the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide is it gives you the bare bones, the minimum to say, this is what the realms is for somebody who's never seen the realms before.
Right, yeah.
And the thing is, all the old stuff is still available. And more and more of it is being made available in electronic form. And you can always ask somebody at Candlekeep, at EN World, at the Pathfinder forums. You can say, what is this thing? Or is there anything else about this city? And in fact, little plug here, I will do a Ormpur, the city. Well, I will probably do an adventure in a Volo's Guide type thing for DM's Guild.
Nice.
And somebody will say, Ormpur, what is there on Ormpur? Well, you go to the Shining South, and then before that, you go to the 2nd edition South thing, and they both have a paragraph on it, and that's about it. What we'll do is infilling, but I totally understand the frustration of a Realms aficionado who says, there's nothing in this book. But take it from the point of view of somebody who says, what's the Forgotten Realms?
Yeah.
Geez, you have a month? Sit down. Here, open this book and read it.
Yeah.
And for me, I would say, you need to play in the realms? Okay, you need the starter adventure. You need this book, Ed Greenwood's Guide to Minster's Forgotten Realms, or whatever they called it. Title to Choke Horse, which is all about, if you go to an inn, this is how much it costs. If you light a candle, this is what you light it with. What is your underwear like in the realms? It's all of this daily stuff that is non-rule specific. You take that and the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, and you're ready to understand start with the world.
Yeah.
So for that purpose, it works.
Awesome. Brian.
I have a question. This is from someone in chat. They asked, what inspired you all those years ago? What would you say, I think, is the spark that cause you to sit down and start creating an entire world. And it's especially interesting in light of the fact that it precluded D&D. So that's fascinating. Maybe it just started as a novel, but yeah, anyway, I'm just curious, what do you think was the first inspiration or spark for you creating it?
Well, the thing is, my father's den was crammed full of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the stuff I really wanted to read more of, there wasn't enough of it.
Right.
And like I said, whenever I went upstairs to my dad and said, "Hey, where's the sequel?" He'd say, "You're going to have to write it yourself." So I go downstairs and write it myself.
Nice.
And it would be terrible. But I mean, again, the more of it you do,
Yep.
the better you get at it. Maybe not the better you get to be as a writer, but the better you get at entertaining yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you like. And what I was trying to do was, in the same way that Fritz Leiber's Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories were episodes in the lives of these heroes, I was doing my own Mert stories. And like the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories, they were all set in the same world. So you were seeing a little bit more of the world in each story as they moved. Well, I set up this conceit at the beginning that Mert was this fat, wheezing, food-stained, past middle-aged swindler. He used to be the mercenary leader, a Conan type, but he could no longer outfight opponents, and he couldn't outrun too many of them either, unless they were older and fatter and wheezier than he was. So he had to outthink them. And that usually didn't go well. So at the end of each story, he would leap down one step ahead of the authorities, the creditors, and his rivals who were after him for something. So I would move him down the Sword Coast. In fact, I was moving him down the Sword Coast for a year before I knew it was called the Sword Coast. And I was moving him down the Sword Coast for another year before I knew it was in a place called the Forgotten Realms. Forgotten because it explained why we here on Earth have legends of dragons and vampires and wyverns and basilisks, but you don't trip over them on your way to work every day. Because there were once gates between the worlds that everybody traveled through. They're still there, but we've largely forgotten how to get there. Hence, the Forgotten Realms. Okay, which meant I could do all those fish out of water stories, like if you've ever read the Narnia books, the witch in The Magician's Nephew gets into London.
Right.
And raging around the streets of Victorian London,
Yep.
you know, with a cab and waving an iron bar and so on. I thought this would be really cool. I can do this. I can do stories like that. But anyway, that's how I started. It was to follow Mert around the world, and the world sort of grew with him.
Nice.
I thought to myself, I don't just want to tell stories about Mert. I do want to tell stories about gorgeous women as well. You know, so I want other characters. So I was expanding, and then I was like, I want this world to make sense. So if there are caravans, if there's a seaport, then they have to be taking cargo that they actually need. So there has to be a shortage of something here and an excess of it here. And then that built the trade routes and everything. And I was thinking this through from, you know, a very young, bored kid doing it this way. And that's made the world feel real. And then it was a world I could escape into and explore as a lonely kid. So there's, you know, I could go on for hours and we don't have it, but that's how it started. It started
that is really, really great. I'm glad to have heard that. That's like a really cool backstory. Thank you for sharing.
I know everyone is very excited by everything that we've been talking about, and people have gone off and pre-ordered already, which is great. And also, we haven't spoken about this, but I know a bunch of you guys are aware that we are giving away some copies tonight. 10 copies, freebie, and one of which is signed by the man himself. So the giveaway is ending in like 20 minutes time. So
I have totally not entered. What?
Oh, I see.
Not at all.
Yeah, there are 20 minutes left to get into it, and so you can go enter and be in for a chance to win. We'll draw the 10 winners live, so you guys can see if you got it, and then you'll be contacted for all the stuff to get Boards on Binding, Grey Shade, and the Pirate King's Daughter. So it's like 1,000.
Let me leap in and do the hand advertisement here.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to do differently in TAG is I don't want anybody not to be able to get these stories. So if we have a short story, it'll come out electronically in Onder magazine. If we have a novel, and if somebody writes 8 or 9 short stories, we'll shove them into a book. Every book will be an ebook. It'll be a print-on-demand trade paperback. It'll be a mass market paperback, and it'll be these luxury hardcovers that we're doing. They will never go out of print. So if you have to choose between rent money or food or attending university and buying a course text,
Yeah.
and you can't buy a Stormtalons book, don't worry. Our plan is these never go out of print. So
Nice.
you'll never have to hunt down books you can't get and pay inflated prices for them. They will always be there because we want you to have a steady flow of stories. Right. End of thing. Anyway, that's the whole idea of TAG. We want you always to be able to get your stories.
That's an incredible. That's a really inspiring way to look at the whole print on demand thing, and being able to do that. That's exciting. That's really cool.
Also, a very brief thing. You can find, if you look in the middle of our stream screen, you can see the cover art and blurb for the Words of Unbinding, and read what the tantalizing clues to what it may be about. Also, I'm quite proud of myself for using the word tantalizing when the first one on there is tantalus.
Titillating.
There we go.
Yes, I would be remiss if I didn't mention our talented art director, Eric Belisle, whose demon portraits actually inspired the entire setting of Helmaw. He's also the art director for Stormtalons. And if you look in those books, you'll notice the covers, they have torsos. No head characters. So you can imagine what the character looks like.
Oh, wow.
And fill that in for yourself. And the hardcovers also get a map section of the world. So you can see. Now, don't worry, we'll be making the maps available separately. And when it's gaming time, gamers love maps. You can always tell a gamer, when the car goes over the edge of the cliff, normal people will be screaming all the way down. The gamer will be saying, "Hey, quick, check the map."
Yeah.
Anyway,
right.
All right, so
we had some questions, did we?
we did, yeah. I think so. All right, so
Well,
we'll answer that one. So, okay, interesting question. Have you ever done acting stage work? I only know you from your magnificent D&D work, really. With your looks, obvious passion, and eloquence, you'd make a magnificent Gandalf.
Well, I always fancy myself more the leading lady type, but
Yeah, I see that.
yes, I've done lots of acting, and I'm available for voice acting. I don't know why anybody would want to see this thing now that I'm, a elder statesman. I begin to look like those sort of actors who play the crotchety old wizards who get it in the face and deserve it. But yes, I have done acting. Every dungeon master should be an actor. Everybody who wants to climb the corporate ladder has to be an actor. Most of our politicians aren't good actors. I wish they were. Although some of them are better than we think.
Yeah.
This is getting very real.
Illuminati?
Yes. Now, and of course, one thing for all you non-gamers out there who are just getting into the field, if you want to be hardened to the vicissitudes of life, go to a large convention and watch a table full of fat, hairy, middle-aged men all going, "Oh, I'm a more beautiful elf maiden than you," to the next one. And you will see acting. It will turn out like gold.
Oh, God. I'm never going to get that out of my brain, Ed.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay.
Amazing.
And Terry Jones and John Cleese have a lot to answer for. Anyway.
All right.
I'm right there with you.
Okay, so if you could write in any other fantasy or science fiction universe created by someone else, which would it be, if you would?
All of them. I've already written in tons of them. I've written in Middle Earth.
Nice.
I have, there's lots of them that I've gotten to play in, and every chance I get, I've just about to participate in a Prince Valiant thing. I'll write a little scenario. There's a Kickstarter. Greg Stafford of Chaosium is bringing back Prince Valiant, bringing back Knights of Pendragon as well. And so the reason I said yes, I get shot when I was asked, is, hey, it's a chance to do Prince Valiant. So yeah, I play every chance I get. I have worked in the Conan universe. I've worked in Middle Earth. Oh yes, I worked in Marvel. And so on and so forth. Yeah. So there any chance I get, I like working in other people's sandboxes because it's fun. And if I'm a fan of it, The one thing I find really daunting, and I'm sure that people find this way for the realms, if you step into a world that has a huge back canon, Star Trek, Star Wars, you have to make, you're very sort of, oh, I don't know, am I gonna say the wrong thing? Am I gonna say she has blue eyes when 15 or 20 years ago somebody said she had brown eyes? And you know, there are those things to worry about, and that would give me pause. But no, I would love to write in all of them. I actually got to write in Amber with Roger, albeit on a bookmark that I brought with me.
Yeah.
He would scribble things in. So, and I would love to do an Amber novel. Now, I don't expect to be ever allowed to do one. I would totally understand it if some people said, no, nobody should write Amber, you know, nobody should write Discworld except Terry. I get that. I totally respect that.
Yeah.
You know, the little private fantasy is, oh, I would love to write a Discworld novel. I would love to write an Amber novel. I would love to write, you know. But if not, that's okay. I'm busy. I've got like 30 settings in tag. I've got steampunk, space opera, gothic romance. I've got all this stuff I want to do. So I will content myself with that. I would love to write all sorts of things. Yeah, there are, you know, I want to write another Dracula novel. Ooh, I want Dracula to be a good-looking gal instead of a guy from Pennsylvania, because that's done.
I mean, the world could use more good vampire fiction. We've had our fair share of not great ones for the last few years, although...
Yeah, well, I figured that vampire fiction should have recipes. In the books.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
choose your own adventure.
All right, so I think this is a bit of a loaded question because the asker knew the answer, but who do I have to pay and how much to be written into an Ed Greenwood novel book as a bit part
character?
Part cameo character. It confused me. Yes. Who do I have to pay where to be a cameo?
I do Tuckerizations occasionally. It would depend on the what and the wherefore. In terms of a Realms novel, almost impossible now, just because of the way the situation things are. A tech novel, it would depend. I'm sure our legal department would go, oh, wait a minute, you have to sign this, you know, with your own blood on your eyeball. We'll need to keep the eyeball, or something of the sort, you know. But I mean, oh yeah, I could be induced to put people in. I have in the past put all sorts of people into the books. And in fact, for a while there, for charity, I used to write short stories to people and just hand them the short story. They have all rights to it. There's at least 4 of those out there, full-length short stories starring people's characters. So yeah, I don't mind doing that. At the moment, just as we speak, I don't have time. Because for the next 3 years, I have to get the first raft of settings all rolling because I'm writing the launch novel in each one. So
oh, wow.
I am, I've written 6 novels so far this year. And usual, you know, computer game scripts, D&D, other game design work and short stories and all sorts of other stuff. So, I mean, I don't have time right at the moment. But yes, we will be doing a lot of that with Tag later on. So, nice. The short answer is stay tuned to Onder, and who knows? There will be opportunities.
Nice.
Well, I'm extra grateful and honored that you were willing to help me out there, Ed. So I just want to say thanks for that.
Oh, a pleasure. That's the sort of fun things, and that reminds me, I need to do a video for you.
Why? Thank you. That's wonderful.
Out of context, that's bad. In context.
Oh, well,
it's all about role playing. Wait, I'm not making it better.
That's a whole different kind of role playing.
I had to make a video for Brian to get it on here too.
That's how you've been getting all these guests. Oh dear. I think we've got one last quick one. Oh, actually, there's one that's been
one last quick one after that. No.
Well, I don't know whether Will wants to do his traditional ending to our interviews, but
sure, yes,
we'll get into that in a sec. But I'm quite interested in this one because, the last couple of years I've seen the growth of shows like Critical Role, Roleplay, that kind of stuff. Do you watch much D&D actual play stuff on Twitch, YouTube? Are you a fan of these kinds of shows, or are we your first Twitch stream of
No. I've
Organs?
actually, there's a 7-hour D&D session I did on Twitch.
Wow.
Gregory Wilson and Divers authors. So you're not the first. I am a fan of the idea of the shows. I don't get to watch too many of them because I have no time. You can either write the stuff
Yeah.
and eat and sleep, or you can play.
Yeah.
I do play. I don't play often enough. I would love to do more. I do like to enjoy watching them. I have to tell you, some people's play sessions are more like, oh yeah, watching guys hang out and scratch themselves as they sit around a table and play.
Yeah.
And the level is down here. And others are hilarious, Geek and Sundry and so on, where you have both genders and everybody's up and in character and are real entertainers. Will Wheaton and his crew. I enjoy watching, but I don't get time to watch enough of them, because the other thing is I live in a rural area with slow connection.
Okay.
And yes, I can watch short YouTube clips because the computer can buffer them. But if somebody says, here, we need you to watch the rush to this movie because we need you to write for it. Here's the link. Just stream it.
Yeah.
Well, I know that I can go away and make sandwiches. Well, it's frozen. I can go to the bathroom. I can go away and brew tea. I can come back. Oh, it's moved another few inches.
I will say this about that on that topic. I'm like, I think I understand very much where you're coming from, Ed. Like, I obviously nowhere near as long as you, but I've been playing for about 20 years. And, the idea that this would become something that you see on the internet is fascinating to me. But I do highly recommend, and you can probably catch it on YouTube where you can allow it to buffer, check out some Critical Role sometime, because I really, it's amazing to see 7 people that are all professional actors and voice actors. It's like, honestly, I'm the same as you. Not enough time. I don't watch it every week like some people do. I just don't have the time. But I think it's an experience worth having. So you can probably find it on YouTube and check out a bit of it sometime. I think that would be cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I love watching the Acquisitions Incorporated.
Oh yeah.
Chris Perkins is a friend of mine. I want to see him Dungeon Master because he's been my Dungeon Master.
Nice. That's great.
So yes, a traditional kind of ending question that we ask for these interviews is we've been interrogating you for the past 2 hours, Ed, and you've been kindly answering our questions. Do you have any questions for us? Brian is obviously a creator, designer. Finbar's a guy. I'm also.
Are you prepared to prove it?
Maybe. And
okay.
Finbar.
It's fine. Just
my question would be, what really turns your crank about the hobby, about stories? What stories do you want to see more of? Then I can tell you which setting you should watch out for.
Well, I feel one of us should have a relatively concrete answer for this, seeing as he's writing one currently.
Me? No, I don't. I'll just say this on that topic. I'll just say it's very interesting and cool to me to hear that you are including all these genres into this world, because that is very much the vision for my project with Amoria's Dawn. There's sci-fi elements, there's steampunk elements, there's high fantasy elements, and there are different sectors of the world and stuff like that. So I guess it's like a singularity. The fact that we're both thinking the same thing at the same time, I mean, to me, I think is really cool. I also wrote a game system that's more friendly to multiple genres playing together in the same space and stuff like that. So it not meant to be an advertisement of myself. It's just really fascinating to hear. And so what turns my crank is, that's exciting to hear that you're doing the same thing with Stormtalons. So I'm definitely going to be following along, and can't wait to see what you guys are cooking up there. That's just awesome.
Well, I think what we'll mainly do is do different genres in different settings.
Sure,
like
sure.
our steampunk one is for Wolf and Empire rather than Stormtalons.
Oh, okay, sure. Cool.
We have a Winter Night Towers. This is sort of, remember all those paperbacks? The woman who, for some weird reason, left the haunted house at night in her nightgown,
right?
Holding up a lit candelabra. Okay, that sort of genre stuff.
Yeah.
And what if the ghosts were funny, except when they were scary? And what if they wanted to make love to you, except when they wanted to kill you? Anyway, that's Winter Night Towers, and we're going to have different settings for each one.
Cool.
I won't say that they might not have some crossovers, but the front ends will be different for all of them.
Sure. Okay, cool.
How you, Timber?
Cool.
I'm kind of drawn down two roads at the moment. Last week we had John Harper, who is designing a game called Blaze the Dark currently, and which takes place in this it's I think it was industrialist fantasy. So you have ghosts and electric cities powered by like the blood of giant demon whales found out in seas of midnight and all this, and it's grimy and gritty and this place you would never want to be, and takes place in a post-magical apocalypse world essentially. And like those kinds of ideas are very street level games of people. I think on that side it's the industrialists, the people kind of like trying to break out of this terrible life they're being ground into. But the other game that's really caught my imagination at the moment, which I'm doing a little bit of like amateur design work with a friend of mine that is never going to be ready by the current pace, is a game called Godbound, that was recently released by the guys who made Stars Outnumber, which is all about people who just start inheriting the powers of gods. And like level 1 in that game is you can summon an earthquake that can level a city, and you can do that twice a day at level 1. It's terrifying. As a GM, I'm just sitting there going, oh my god, how do I create reasonable challenges and interesting encounters with these people? They've got some really good rules in there, but like this idea of kind of grand fantasy and like these worlds are kind of rotting, and it's like you... And to add on to a bit of that, of like you can gain cults in this game as you're a god ascending, and this idea that kind of the way that you act actively influences and changes society, but you're still immortal, so you can't control that. You don't have the omniscience and omnipresence to really make it work. So I find that idea of like improper communication and absolute power as an interesting setup.
I have I have a tag setting for you, but I can't talk about it yet because it's way down the road.
That's fair.
Yes. There will be something.
You heard it here first, folks. I'm steps ahead. I'm steps ahead of everybody, except the man writing it. He's got some experience.
Will, what turns your crank? Underneath that coverlet there.
Yeah, of course. Well, really, because I play so much, like D&D, 150 hours a month, every month, without pause and 24-hour stream, I kind of get bombarded by like the fantasy kind of like tropes and stuff, I suppose. And so something I found really interesting recently is to play Call of Cthulhu, which is a really different style of game. I started reading the works of H.P. Lovecraft as well. Very different style of kind of investigative horror, which is just such a change of pace for me from Dungeons and Dragons. It's been really refreshing and just kind of creatively like, there's not a +5 sword with a dragon, and so stories about horrific things which happen to people, which are basically unstoppable.
Like tax returns.
Exactly. Yes.
Tax Returns and Tentacles is actually the subtitle for Call of Cthulhu Second Edition.
The latest book out. Yeah. That's got me going recently. It's kind of stop a creative block from happening, I suppose, and get me excited to play it every day.
Yeah. Any Lovecraftian horror in the works there?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we have a setting: Death and Tentacles. Yeah. And actually, my home D&D crew used to love playing Call of Cthulhu and Arkham Horror, the board game, the original board game. And one of the things we do is play at my cottage in the summer. And the people next door were the usual hullabaloos, you know, who drink and roar with motorboats and laugh uproariously and make lots and lots of noise. So late at night, we would play Arkham Horror by candlelight in this hot, sticky cottage. So we were, you know, we peel down to the bare minimum and play by the candlelight. And when you saw one of the great old ones, or when they're turned up, you know, one of the sites, left the cottage and you walked around the cottage going, and we would gleefully wake up the next door neighbors. And they'd check out, and there'd be somebody start naked walking past them.
Somebody make a gif of Ed doing that right now.
I just had my memory of the one time we got noise complaints from our neighbours at university. Not for lack of trying, it was university, but it was when we came back from a night out and it was like, well, it's 2 a.m, we should probably go to bed. And one of us went, or we could play Magic the Gathering for like another 2 hours. And we managed to get so loud playing 4-player Magic the Gathering that we woke our neighbours up. And they stormed around to tell us to be slightly quieter about our trading card game.
I am old enough that when playing Magic the Gathering with Richard Garfield, it was always played in almost dead silence. The card would go down and somebody would say, "Oh, I'm tapping that." Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes, that was not our way.
As noisy as it got. So you could actually play it in dumb show, or you could play it at a whisper, which of course is really handy if you're playing it when you should be doing something else, like paying attention to the teacher.
That is a skill. I don't think I ever played Magic at the back of a classroom. I tip my hat to that.
As a journalist, I have covered court cases in which Magic the Gathering was being played at desks in a courtroom.
Wow.
By lawyers. Well, the judge up at the head did this.
Wow.
Says, you're all gonna die.
Oh, wow. You know what? Well, the giveaway is just finished, so let's just draw the winners. So, drum roll, please. Good luck, everybody. Oh wait, it's not quite finished. I've got a few seconds left. Oh no! A second to go in. It says how many seconds? Like 20. Oh boy. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to do.
Oh.
Can we take a screenshot, someone, to commemorate this moment, and everyone can pull a funny face?
I'll do it.
All right. So, funny face in 3, 2, 1. All right, we're good. I'm assuming someone got that.
Good. I imagine 1,000 print screens cried out in horror.
All right, let's draw these.
They were
ones.
silenced.
Let's see. We got who's won all these prizes. So
I did.
All the books are mine.
We have hey, Mike has won. Unmade Gaming's won, as well as Necrodante, El Cheesy, Pieman, Lindez, Gundarcy, Giant Spain, Mark, James Featherson, Mud Puppy, and Mark James has also won the signed hardback, as well as Shadow has also won. I'll put the things in the widget so you guys can see. So congratulations to you guys. Well done. You're all winners. You're all winners today, really. You're all winners because you get.
Everyone's a winner.
Everyone's a winner, really, because we get to see it. And like Ed was saying, go and grab all the stuff here. Stormtalons is a link in chat for you guys. Congratulations, everybody. Pre-ordered stuff there, and like I said, available pretty much anything that comes out. So you're really not really missing out. But there are all the winners on the page now. So we'd love to stay and chat forever. Literally forever, but unfortunately we must go and do real life things such as sleeping and eating pancakes, which is equally, if not more so, important.
I have to be back in work in 7 hours. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be
Oh.
good.
I don't remember the last time I got 7 hours of sleep. So
Oh,
anyway.
that's not 7 hours of sleep. That is in work, dressed, and ready to go in 7 hours. Dear.
So yes, thank you so much, Ed, for coming on the show.
Yeah.
My pleasure. This has been great fun. And
Yeah.
the time just flew by. It was too fast.
It did.
I know.
You'll just have to come back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we'd love to talk to you again, Ed. If you ever get some free time, we know what it's like, scheduling things. So thank you so much for sparing us your precious time today and for talking about Stormtalons.
Thank you for having me. It's been great fun. Yeah, I'd love to do this again.
Great
Let's
stuff.
party.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I'll let you guys do your sign-offs and stuff like that, because there's people watching. Maybe they might be interested in things that you do. Let's hand it over to the Greenwood. So Ed, why should
Goodbye. Light there on the east, all over the planet.
for just $5 a month you could support Ed Greenwood? So
Librum.com, and you can hang out with me. Occasionally I blog. Occasionally we release stuff. Occasionally there's fun stuff to do there. It's like, another little corner of the internet. We want to become your little home. So whenever life is too tough, too rough, go to Under Librum, and you'll know there are other crazy people like you hanging out.
That is amazing.
Good.
I feel compelled.
try and follow that, Brian. Try and follow that.
I can't compete with that, guys. I'm sorry. I'm boring by comparison. So Open Legend, the rules are free on the website. They always will be free. We'll have a beautiful PDF and hardback that you'll be able to buy come October. We have a certain guy you might know named Ed Greenwood who's contributing to Amoria's Dawn. This is the inaugural campaign setting, which will also be part of that October Kickstarter. Also, Matthew Mercer, who we talked a little bit about tonight, is going to be contributing. John Wick, who is the author of 7th Sea, and lots and lots of other people. Well, not too many, but anyway, so follow me, Open Legend RPG, on Twitter. Check out the website, openlegendrpg.com, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon.
Yeah, awesome. And Finbar.
Hello. My name is Finbar, but you can find me on the internet at MathinTV. You can see it written here. I play video games and try to talk intelligently over the top, but mostly it's screaming as I'm bad at stealth. Sometimes I talk about game design and ideas I have that are usually half-formed, half-baked, and half-interesting. And the rest of the time, on Mondays, you can find me here on Encounter Roleplay, where I play assorted characters. At this current time, it's a bartender with a robot arm who's desperately trying to get his booze back, and is being attacked by a bunch of killer bunnies. I promise it's cooler than it sounds. Twitch.tv/MathinTV, Twitter at FinbarDS. Find me. Find
him somewhere. Hunt him down. Some very loud music playing from outside. That's strange. Anyway, I'm going to go shoot whoever that is. And, of course, if you enjoyed Encounter Roleplay and you wanted more stuff like this, we have some fairly regular interviews these days with Shannon Jermaine on the update, John Harper, and now Ed Green. We're working our way up. Next, I can only assume will be Gandalf himself on the show.
We're going to resurrect Gygax to talk to him.
Yes.
I think that's the next level of impossible guest.
Yeah. So
Matters is what you do with the time you are given.
Love it. So if you enjoyed this show, then go follow us. If you like, we're here 5 nights a week, 10 shows a week, 150 hours every single month. Do a D&D stream, 24 hours every month as well, so you can follow us. Tomorrow is Wednesday, which means I'm playing Call of Cthulhu. Hooray! So you can find me 4 p.m. Eastern playing some Call of Cthulhu then. Other than that, though, it's time to sign off, I guess. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for waiting so patiently and asking some interesting questions. Thanks again to Ed for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And to Brian and Finbar for asking some questions as well and chatting along. So we'll see you guys soon. Until tomorrow. Try not to throw too many in at once because we want to be here laughing when you do. Good night, everybody.
Good night.